And welcome to this episode of Season 5 of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and often guests, as we have today, talk about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which was the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late John Popham. And as we usually do, we'll do a weather check. So welcome to the show, Jess Flack. How has the weather been this week where you are?
It's a beautiful day, and I'm stuck in, but we won't talk about that.
What part of the country are you in, Jess?
I'm in Essex, a place called Rayleigh, and
Hmm.
I've got my washing on the line. It's a little bit windy.
Oh, that reminds me, I've got mine out too. Yeah, good to think about that. Let's tell each other if it starts raining. It's okay here so far. Okay, and George Unsworth is with you today as well. George, how are you? Where are you? And what's the weather like there?
Hi, Pauline. I'm very well. The weather, I think, is a little bit cloudy, a little bit overcast, not as
Uh,
beautifully sunny as it was at the weekend.
what part
Uh,
of the country are you in?
I'm in North London.
Okay, cool. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Swain, what about you? Where are you? And what's the weather like there?
I'm in Kirkwall in Orkney as usual, and the weather is beautiful. It's a lovely
Mm.
spring day. We've got the good weather for a little bit longer than you further south, just for
Uh-huh.
once.
Good. And here in Birmingham, the sun is shining very much through the clouds. It's just a bit grey though, so I think it might rain. I think it's not forecast till 3 o'clock though, but you know what the forecasts are like. Anyway, okay, let's move on to some dates that we've picked up before we have a bit of a longer chat with our guest today. Swain, what dates have you picked up along the way?
Uh, Two this week. One, partly with a nod to memory of our friend John Popham, who founded this show, is National Pet Month. I mean, I know not everyone can have a pet, whether it's for health reasons or due to housing conditions or whatever like that. But National Pet Month has been going for years to celebrate the bond between humans and animals and to highlight the joys and responsibilities of responsible pet ownership across the globe. It's a month-long event, and it also focuses on promoting supporting pet adoption and recognizing the contributions of service and therapy animals. And there's a cute picture of dogs and cats there for you as well. So that's the first one.
Lovely.
Second one is something called World Voice Day. Uh, and it is an international day to highlight the importance of voice as a thing. It's a global annual event dedicated to the phenomenon of voice celebration, and the aim is to show the enormous value of the voice in people's daily lives and that it's an important aspect of healthy and effective communication. The day brings worldwide awareness of the necessity of preventing voice issues, training the artistic voice, rehabilitating the sick or deviant voice, as well as researching the application and function of the voice. And it's to encourage people to use their voice for pleasure or business and to learn how they can take care of their voice, plus know how they can seek help, uh, either as training or as support with difficulties. And that's World Voice Day, which is on Wednesday.
Hmm, 16th of April. Great. And a couple of events that we picked up as well on the 29th of April, both on the 29th of April. The first one is Digital Volunteering Matchmaking Event 2025. And this is an event aiming to link tech companies seeking corporate social responsibility volunteer opportunities with community voluntary or social enterprise organizations looking for volunteers to support basic digital skills for Leeds residents. They're aiming for attendees to leave the event having made meaningful matches leading to ongoing mutually beneficial partnerships. And it's great to see that happening, not just volunteering as such, but digital volunteering, which those with digital skills can and I think should help others who haven't got such skills to increase their skills. And the second one is in Edinburgh on the same day, Edinburgh Green Tech Meetup on digital sustainability and green products. And joining them for this event is Joanna Mastraff, aka Pirate Joe, the co-founder of Green PO, which is a training company on a mission to turn every product person into a green product person, as well as co-organizer of the Agilists for Sustainability Meetup and Agilists for Planet virtual conference. Joe is on a mission to live more sustainably and to help individuals, groups, and organizations do it too. She does this by raising awareness on digital sustainability, decarbonizing digital products, simplifying, localizing, and circularizing value streams, and coaching and mentoring passionate and individuals looking to take action. She's passionate about creating spaces for human beings to learn together, aiming for a better digital future for all while having fun. So that sounds like our kind of person as well. Okie doke. And so we move on to welcome our very special guests for today, Jess Flack, Digital Inclusion Lead Officer, Essex County Council, and George Unsworth, the founder and CEO of Mortar. I'm very excited about meeting both of you today. I've been stalking Jess on LinkedIn for ages, and we've been trying to arrange this, so I'm very glad we were able to make it happen today. Jess is tackling digital exclusion with joined up thinking. She's networking and developing impactful professional partnerships, joining the dots and connecting the right people to make projects work harder and funding go further for the people who need it most. And George is as I say, the founder and CEO of Mortar. At Mortar, he says they help companies from across government, healthcare, and real estate use technology to improve outcomes for people, property, and places. And he says our framework enables customers to create scalable solutions that transform how people access and experience their services. Before founding Mortar, George's journey was fueled by experiences of the world from opposing sides of its complex systems. He's happy to have found his niche, creating value and supporting the application of new technology and working with customers and partners to design and implement new solutions. He says networks are small and life is short, so be kind and get in touch. And so we are all in touch with each other today. Brilliant. Welcome both to the show. As I say, really excited, very excited, particularly to meet Jess in person like this because we do similar things for work, and I think she's a great addition to the show. And she suggested, George, that you join us to talk about a particular piece of work that even you and her have been working on in Essex. So, Jess, very welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself a bit more.
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction. Yes, so I'm Jess Flack. I'm the Digital Inclusion Lead Officer for Essex County Council. I've been at this for a good couple of years now. My golden thread is can't stand social injustice. So whatever that looks like, I'll be in there in the weeds trying to work out what's wrong and how we can make things better for the people who need us most. Digital inclusion is a massive deal, more so now than ever before, because the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, who kind of look after digital inclusion for central government, have got involved in a way in which it means that we are being listened to. We've got strategic direction coming. We're going to have some funding happening. So it's a very exciting place to be at the moment, and certainly one that keeps me busy. So yeah, in Essex, we focus on 3 key pillars around digital inclusion. So that's access, affordability, and adoption of skills. The Department of Science, Innovation and Technology focus on 4, so that includes motivation in there as well. So we're very closely aligned with what we're trying to do. But I do love talking to people, connecting the dots, challenging things that don't work, and just being somebody that hopefully other people feel that they can come to for advice, guidance and support, which again makes me a busy person. And George and I met quite a while ago now, wasn't it, George? Was it sort of back in when I first started, about 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
And I sadly missed out on some funding to do some work around the digital signposting tool. And the lovely and amazing Salford City Council and East Ridings actually got to work with George around a signposting tool, which enables people to find support locally to them around digital inclusion initiatives. So that's digital champions, advice on social tariffs, which are cheaper broadband packages, where you can go for a data bank. It might be banking hubs because they're becoming more prevalent now as our banks close down. So yeah, I lost out initially, but I kept at it. I was like, I really want to do this thing. And that's where the Digital Help Finder tool has kind of really been born out of. It does a couple of things. So it's a signposting tool, so building on that amazing work from Salford City Council, the LGA and East Ridings. But it also focuses on baselining your essential digital skills for work and life through the national framework that Future.now have developed with central government. That was born out of a need for me to stop this whole annoying thing happening of what can we put on our CV to showcase our digital skills? Or I know, competent in IT, which means nothing to no one. Or even worse than that, I could only say to my lovely students when I used to teach at City University of London, when they were looking for sandwich placements, I'd say to them, well, beginner, intermediate, or advanced, at various different things. And then you kind of showcase the skills. So it wasn't too bad, but it still didn't do what I thought we needed to do and what was missing. And my previous role at Essex, I was a skills commissioner around digital. And that basically means I look for gaps and then work with organisations to close the gaps through commissioning projects and programmes. And I had long conversations with the Department of Work and Pensions, who at the time were trying to put people into these fantastic boot camps. But a big difficulty for them was really understanding what people were coming to them at in terms of their baseline digital skills. Because if you don't know where someone's starting from, you don't know if they're going to be successful in a programme that builds on that. So that's where this digital help finder tool came from. It does those two things. And so far, we've co-produced it with some fantastic community volunteering services. So the guys that are really out there doing the doing on the ground in terms of digital inclusion, finding out what they need, what their pain points are, and how we can build a tool that enables them to better showcase the impact of the work that they're having. And as I'm sure you're aware, with digital inclusion, impact is a difficult one to manage, measure, maintain, and report on. So yeah, that's where we kind of, that's where we're at. That's what we've done and launched back in November. And the tool is free at the moment for the next.
I think I'm showing it on the screen now.
You are, yeah.
I've got a link to that. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Beautiful purple colour.
Very nice. Yes.
Brand.
Lovely. So what can you do through the Digital Help Finder?
So two things. So if you go to a local library, for example, and you say, I can't do this thing, I can't get online because I don't have connectivity at home, I don't have a device, or I just lack the skills and confidence, you can add in your postcode and it will signpost through to person, place and time and lots of other resources that are local to you for some support. And George will be able to showcase that to you in a little bit, I'm sure. And then it also enables you to answer some questions, set of 6 different questions, which focus on baselining your essential digital skills for work and life. And then once you've done that, out pops a score, and you will be at starter, learner, apprentice, or champion. And you can move through some online training, which is free, self-paced, platform agnostic learning. It's really important for us that we're making this free and fair. That enables people to then upskill, reassess, and move through that skills ladder. A big one for me in this space is the champion level. Once we have people at champion level, we want to be able to kind of keep in touch with them and say, would you like to support your local community and champion? Because as you know, funding wise, this is quite a difficult space. And a lot of the work that is carried out in digital inclusion initiatives is done through volunteering. Yeah. So if we can create a sustainable group of people who train up, use the tool, find out what their skills are like, move through that, and then can champion themselves. And of course, people with lived experience are always way more attractive in terms of championing and volunteering, because they come at this from your perspective in life, rather than me who's worked in teaching and all of that sort of stuff. It's very different. So yeah, the championing piece is really important for me. We're looking at how we can measure the impact of this going forward, having conversations with UK central government, Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, and it's a very exciting time. So,
it sounds like something that every single county in the country, in the UK, in fact, could benefit from. Is that a possibility? Is that on the horizon?
I hope so. That's what we're aiming for. We are having conversations centrally to see what's possible. But yeah, that's the idea. If I could leave digital inclusion with the legacy of some, I'm hoping to retire by like 50 or something. Um,
Long way away, obviously.
we could not that far. I'm getting grayer by the minute. If we could leave that legacy of being able to baseline those skills, know where we're at, and then move people through that skills ladder nationally, that would be ideal for me. And I think the tool itself was originally designed around residents' needs. But obviously, we have a massive gap in the digital skilling understanding of our SMEs who prop up our economy. We are 99% small to medium enterprises in Essex. You probably wouldn't believe that, but we are. Our educators as well. Where we want to move into this new revolution around AI, we need to know what our baseline skills look like before we try and tackle that. Otherwise, you'll switch people off. And then anybody looking for employment, to get onto that first rung of the ladder, they really need to understand where their skills are at and how they can move on from there. And the exciting bit in terms of where we can progress to is that we've already got fantastic organisations out there like IDEA, and Polly Morgan is amazing in that space for badging up fantastic digital experiences in terms of modular development that are largely free, that you could potentially then attach to the digital help finder so you get to a champion level, and then you kind of go beyond that to really focus on additional skills. So yeah.
So developing a product like that, you really have to have a very strong and close relationship with the company that's developing it. So obviously that's where Mortar comes in. It's not, you wouldn't want to just pick any company because they might not have the same investment in the outcome as you do. Well, George, what's Mortar's investment in this and the long-term vision?
So Mortar is an agency for applying technology. Our commitment's always been improving the accessibility of services. So we have a little mantra called building better services. And that really stemmed out of the foundation of the company originally. We recognized that a lot of our place-based stakeholders that were trying to deliver initiatives for the benefit of their citizens, they were just replicating the same problems, the same barriers, the same issues. They were confronting all of the same challenges, and they were each kind of trying to tackle those in their silos, and so that all the same work was being repeated around service design, systems design, and then solutions were being created in isolated environments that just weren't able to be scaled. And I was involved in that for the first half of my career, confronting all of those challenges, working with users in local services. And it got to a point where, with a group of other kind of public sector designers and developers, we recognized the need for a more scalable and more affordable service design framework. And that's what we went about designing and building. At around 2019, we founded Mortar to do that. And we created this framework called Hooped, which is a modular service design framework where project by project, we've been able to grow a set of modules, a growing set of modules, implemented within a suite of different tools, that there's a framework and architecture that allows us to make those scalable where they can be, wherever they can be. And working with local government partners and partners in place-based partnerships enabled us to try and identify those types of scalable solutions quite early on in our journey. We actually kind of rode a nice wave out of the pandemic where there was suddenly a huge emphasis on a lot of the challenges around digital exclusion in particular, but also just the accessibility of information, the quality of information being provided to people, the fact people were just overloaded with misinformation and poor quality information in terms of how it's designed and how it's targeted for the specific beneficiaries. So we really benefited by having some public solutions at that point out in the wild, supporting some local authorities with community navigation, supporting consortia of charities and community groups with how they present their information more effectively to target users. And the local government association got wind of some of those projects, and we were able to present to them, and they put us on a pathway of working with more local authorities and within a more scalable project around digital exclusion, combating digital exclusion.
Okay.
So we first worked with London Borough of Havering on a local government association Pathfinders programme soon, whilst the pandemic was still in its throes, really. And that was all about how do we signpost residents to services and resources to support them in becoming more digitally included. And that was a really interesting piece of work. We developed a triage component, a set of 6 questions. I think there were 8 in total, in fact, that frontline service staff could go through with a resident or a user, citizen, that was displaying and presenting digital exclusion, because it's actually a really difficult thing to define on its own, and people don't come forwards with their hands up to say that they're digitally excluded. It comes out through lack of access to priority services or a moment of need when they're working with a frontline services team. But at that point, they needed help to understand the nature of what was being experienced and then know how to respond to that. So it was the first time we designed a triage tool to help frontline service staff. And it was specifically shaped around digital exclusion and the types of questions you need to ask to uncover the underlying need. And we laid that on top of a directory of local area services and resources so that we could start making recommendations and prioritizing certain services for certain users depending on how they answered these questions. And that was a really good development of Hooped and the service design framework. And it's been taken on since into a whole beta phase led by Salford City Council, which Jess alluded to, and a group of associate partners across the country. Very interesting looking at it from a rural perspective, digital inclusion in rural areas and across large geographic areas with different borders, coastal border, as well as borders with other neighbouring authorities. How do you signpost residents across these areas, depending on where they are? The really interesting kind of case studies have come about in doing the work with different types of partners. And I was thrilled when Essex were able to secure the opportunity to work with us, and they brought to the table a really valuable recognition that we can't just be signposting people. We need to have a method of engaging them in digital skills and creating that baseline assessment that helps our organizations and the broader ecosystem around digital inclusion to create meaningful progress, meaningful touch points and meaningful progress for people as they became more digitally included. So we added in this dynamic self-assessment to the tool. So we've got triage there, we've got a directory there, we've also got this dynamic self-assessment of skills, which organizations are able to do with their users. And we've also got really good monitoring of progress. What the Essential Digital Skills Framework gives us is a really great framework on which we can start to monitor how people are progressing in their digital skills and give Essex a really great platform on which to see the impact of their investment, the impact of their work, and identify where they need to be delivering support to help boost the partners delivering services.
That's fantastic, George. Thank you so much for that explanation, because it's good to see under the hood really a little bit of a company that kind of is obviously taking its CSR and its kind of social impact very seriously. We don't always hear that. And so, Jess, what data are you getting from the Digital Help Finder? What are people looking for every day? Are people who aren't very digitally skilled themselves able to help other people navigate the Help Finder?
Okay, so in terms of the data that we have, we split it out into the signposting tool and the baselining the skills tool bit. So we can see how many people are kind of coming into the tool and saying, I've got an issue with this thing, so I can't get access to a device. And then we're able to sort of connect them with our Closing the Digital Divide program, which can give them access to a device through a referral partner. If they're talking about, I don't have connectivity at home, then all of our community volunteering services and charities who work with us on this piece are provided with information around social tariffs, which are cheaper broadband packages, and And then obviously on top of that, we've got the skills element of things as well. So we can see where people are struggling with particular skills, where people are actually okay with particular skills. And then you can also see how many points people move up. So very quickly kind of going through the tool there. But yeah, essentially you can see once somebody comes into the tool, they start here, and these are the points that they move up.
So George is showing that now on the screen. It will look good if you are sort of full screen on a computer monitor. If you're on a smaller device, you may only get the gist of it, but it looks great on my big computer screen here at home.
Yeah, good to see the diagrams at the top showing overall. This
Yeah.
one, digital skills platform, has been used by 51 people. Is that 51 in the last day, week? What's the time period?
We're in the staging environment here. So this is the demo environment. So we're not in the live tool. So
Okay.
that means everything that I've shown you on screen, it's just dummy demo content.
Okay.
But it gives you an indication of the data set that we're capturing.
I thought I'd found my Chelmsford cousin as well. Oh no.
Yes, I've got family in Shenfield, so I'm sure they're going to be very interested in this as well. So, are you looking at the data every day, Jess? I'm sure you are. And like, who wants to know? Who are you feeding that to?
We've got a lot of different partners that are interested in what the data can provide them. So we've got the pioneers, our community volunteering services that we co-produce the tool with. They're using this information to kind of say, 10 new people have come in and used this service, and they're now able to do these things which enable them to get a job or access better healthcare. Talking about the NHS app, for example, or connect with family to reduce loneliness and social isolation. One of the it's a bigger killer in the UK than cancer is, and all of those different types of things. Then you've got other sort of different perspectives. So, for example, if you're an organisation that's working with people specifically to help them get a job, then they can focus on their skills for work and move through those and actually showcase somebody's skills to an employer, which helps obviously much better than the competent in IT thing I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But also, I would love to kind of be working with our educators, as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, in enabling teachers, tutors to understand where their baseline skills are, and then how they can move through the skills assessment to get sort of CPD accreditation. So a good example of that, a couple of the providers that we work with directly on this. So you've got Good Things Foundation's Learn My Way, which is a free tool. You've got Barclays Digital Wings free tool. Barclays Digital Wings entire platform has CPD accreditation attached to it. So if you've got learners who go through a program of skilling with you, for example, we've got an amazing group of ladies, the University of the Third Age, who are using the tool for this particular showcase piece. They trained a person up as a digital champion using Barclays Digital Wings, and then they're now using their platform to kind of go through modules, and each person then gets a little digital badge as they go along, and it's that.
Oh, I like that. I love digital badges. I think there's great feature in them, and I know others are looking at that as well. One of the things we mentioned off air earlier on was about the DCIT, Digital Inclusion Action Plan Call for Evidence. Very catchy title. And I'm sure I've submitted 2 responses to that. I'm sure you've submitted as well. And one of the things that I said in my submission for the charity that I work for, kind of inspired or kind of supported by evidence from local people, is that the Learn My Way platform is very well known, very long established, but it's a bit it's got its place, but I think there are potentially more exciting ways to learn about being online than that for some people. So I've been kind of suggesting maybe gaming or something like that might be a way of looking into making it more interesting for people, because the last thing you want to do is kind of make people bored with what they're learning, because they've come forward, they said they want to be online, and you need to give them something to kind of meet meet that excitement that there can be of being online, and say in a safe way as well. So what's your take on kind of the learning part of this?
I love that idea. And I think the important thing is that this is likely to be a group of people that perhaps didn't get on. Well, there's lots of demographics around digital exclusion, but a big demographic that we work with are people who are usually adults who perhaps didn't have a particularly good time in education. It wasn't for them, didn't appeal to them, they had difficulties, all of those different things. So the way in which you present the information and you engage them with the information is really important. And that links as well to place-based delivery. So at the moment, the adult education budget, or adult skills fund, as it will be known, is really quite like caveated to this is the way it has to be delivered, unless you are a devolved authority like Greater Manchester, who are doing amazing things in saying, we're going to use this money place-based. We're going to give our community volunteering services, for example, an opportunity to deliver adult skills training in a library. That's how that works. And that's what I've put in part of our call for evidence as well. I love the idea of gaming. I think it's a really important way to kind of think about how we engage people of all different ages. There is an amazing guy called Patrick Marin who is developing out this very thing. His focus was older people, actually, in sort of bringing them in. But I said, like, this is an all-age opportunity here. You could use it for school children. So alongside providing them with something like a child-safe sim, which locks down dodgy content, age-inappropriate things, harmful content, connecting to people that they shouldn't get in contact with, for example, and using AI to lock that all down. Kids could receive this game, which teaches them about essential digital skills. The last time I spoke to Patrick, he was at the phase where we were having a look at it and how it worked, and I thought it was kind of, it felt similar to like Duolingo for me. And that's absolutely where I think this needs to be, a platform where you can engage with it, bite-sized learning, do this thing, open up this new door of opportunity, this new level. And that also shows you the connectivity of the skills that you're learning. So it gives you a pedagogy, which is, for me, a really important part of the conversation that we often miss. My background is teaching, so that's where I kind of link all this stuff too. It should be about how you learn as much as what you learn. Yeah. So we struggle with that a little bit, and we sort of get people sitting in a seat and teach them a thing. But so much of digital inclusion need is sort of coming at things from the perspective of, I have this thing that I need to do right now.
Yeah.
Don't understand my council tax bill and how to, or I'm going to lose my cloud connection because I'm getting a new Apple phone and I don't know how to get all the pictures of my grandchildren onto this device. It's a very point of need focus. So bums on seats and sitting down and going through specific things is harder to deliver unless you've already hooked people in around a thing that they really want to do. So I love those.
Yeah. The other thing, and if these ideas actually ever get produced, I'm very happy. Try not to feel too have ownership of them. But I know when the Archers had a thread on domestic violence, and they featured coercive control. They worked with charities, to develop the storyline, and they really were very effective. And a lot of people heard about coercive control for the first time on the Archers, and then were able to realize that's what's happening to me. I'd love to see a storyline on digital exclusion, digital champions. Why aren't some of the Archers digital champions in their local library? I never hear them using the library, although I may be out of touch. I haven't listened to the Archers for a while. Or other programs where you can normalize this. This shouldn't be an add-on, a kind of a separate thing. This should be something that people do. When I go to group sessions, training sessions, or meetings, or whatever, I always ask people, have you helped somebody online today? Have you helped somebody, or this week, have you helped somebody find a phone number, find something on their device, use an app, whatever? And then I tell them, you're a digital champion. If you've done that, you're a champion. And I think we need to have more normalizing of the champion role, rather than make it a separate thing. What's your thoughts?
100%. I mean, we could probably talk about this all day. It's one of the things that I talk to young people about a lot. That's the first thing I say to them is when we're talking about digital inclusion, put your hand up if you've helped your nan recently get onto Netflix. Or, have you helped your next door neighbor order some online shopping? And they put their hands up and they go, right, exactly as you just said, Pauline, you're a digital champion. You haven't realized that that's a skill that you have, but it's extremely valuable. And then we talk about, the groups of people that just don't have access. But I think also as well as this whole concept of digital isn't going away and we need to make sure that people are aware of it, using it and so on, you've still got this group of people who will just flat out decide that that isn't for them. And we need to make sure that they are incorporated into the conversation and support.
Yes, absolutely.
Still. It's called neo-ludism. Heard about this technology a little while ago.
New to me.
And yeah, it's essentially I just don't want to engage with digital because there are people who decide that that isn't them. There are others that can be you can bring them on the journey a little bit more around a particular hook, but there will always be people that just don't want to. And when you talk about groups like Age Concern who do incredible work in supporting people into getting online, one of their mantras is that this should be about choice. So I'm kind of saying to them, but align yourself as well with groups of people who don't want to, because they're not going away. People will say, and it's horrible, old people will die out and they're the problem and they just don't want to engage with digital. But there will always be people that don't want to engage. And you must provide a service for anybody that chooses not to.
That kind of insight, that kind of approach is what the public sector has always had to do. Councils can't choose who they offer services to. Banks and Tesco can choose who they offer services to. And that kind of basic I don't mean basic provision, I mean provision, the basic idea that good provision is required for everyone, no matter what their circumstances, and that is what society and on behalf of society, government tends to start from. I think is where an awful lot of the misunderstanding comes between those who are trying to do bright new shiny things and those who are trying to provide what people actually need where they are as they need it. And it comes up again and again and again. We could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. But if you don't take people along with you, or at least if you don't integrate what those things are into your other ways of providing service, then you're always going to be shooting yourself in the foot, if not somewhere more painful.
And you've hit the nail on the head that we make assumptions that people are at a certain level when they come to a service.
Yeah.
George and I know the painful reality that is.
Well, any local authority will know that because they have always dealt with people who can't do things for themselves. Home care, support for vulnerable adults, childcare, child protection, all of those things. I mean, you can say that they're a small number of people, but it's not a small number of people when you add them all up. And it's not a demographic or a user, a group of users that at first blush a sort of commercial or tech bro type attitude ever seems to think about.
Exactly. And so that's the piece that George and I are working on at the moment, the difference between accessibility and inclusion. So a lot of so I'm a Hot Topics ambassador, which is a C-suite sort of group that I can be a digital inclusion ambassador for essentially. And I speak to a lot of C-suites and they say, but my website's accessible. And I was like, great. But like 1 in 4 people are offline. Oh.
Yeah. Why did they still get surprised about that?
There's just and I think it's human nature to live in a bubble. And it's not until that bubble is burst that we, really think differently. Look at the results of the pandemic and the sort of ways in which we've changed our behavior around that. I mean, some of it, we're sort of going back to where we were before, but we have had to change our behaviors based on the bubble being burst. So if I'm a bubble burster, I'll take that.
Yeah, I'm just aware, as I say in other places as well, that the work that was done during lockdown, during the pandemic, was based a lot, somewhat anyway, on fear and, kind of worry about being left out and worry about being excluded. And like, so it wasn't a good foundation for a lot of organizations. And so they still need to build the foundations, and kind of maybe then come back up again. George, uh, just don't leave you as a conversation. So you're not, from what Jess has said, you're not one of the typical tech bros. Does that, is there any, do you feel you're missing out on any of that, or do you compensate in other ways for that?
Oh, I don't think I'm missing out at all. I think the stereotypical tech bro isn't somebody that I think I'd like to step into the shoes of it.
It's a
most
kind of a
days of the week.
stereotype, but it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it does exist, as we all know as well.
it
So
certainly
yeah.
does, and I've met enough to know that it exists out there. I think no, I'm really happy in the space that we're working in, and actually, a lot of the hype and the hyperbole around technology, it exists in the absence of actually solutions existing in the real world and people using them and people benefiting from them. So a lot of obviously we hear from the tech titans and their constant launches of new technology and new tools for us to be using, and it's amazing that so many people are engaging with those now. But a lot of the tech bros that we see kind of highlighted in startup world, because we are essentially a startup. They don't get to have the same successes in terms of implementing their tools with excited customers, such as local authorities and place-based stakeholders working with their citizens and users to have tools actually being used so proactively and generating such benefit. Yeah, it's a nice place to be in. Wouldn't change it for the world.
Oh, that's really good. I don't know if you're already involved with the London Tech for Good scene, but if you're not, I can introduce you to some people who would love to have you on board, because it sounds like you're right up their street. Jess, I want to come back to you because I'm aware that we're kind of going to be running out of time if we don't get to it, to talk about Microsoft Windows 11. Big topic. We've talked about it occasionally on the show before. It's coming down, barreling at us like a steam train out of control. Lots of charities won't even have thought about it yet and are still, some probably still using Vista, I have to say. First of all, Microsoft has been the kind of the market leader for such a long time, especially with local authorities, but it's not the only company out there. What advice are you giving people? What are your thoughts about the scenario and what needs to be done? Because I know I've seen some exchanges you've had with colleagues of mine. David Abosh in Birmingham thinks, we can find alternatives to Microsoft. What are your thoughts on it?
So I have to be fair and consistent, and that puts me in quite a good position actually in a space like this that can be fraught with, oh, you shouldn't be saying this, you shouldn't be saying that. I can say what I want as long as I'm signposting and not advising. So my position is that I don't care how it's done, but the unfairness of this for me is that there are people out there who don't know that this is happening or will happen to them. And actually, big organizations are fine because they've got a contract that will manage this thing. Educators, so schools might be struggling. And I know that some of them have come to me and asked me, what's going to happen? I don't know, am I going to be charged £18,000 for a new IT suite? And for me, the point of this is that they need to know what their options are.
Yeah.
So I've worked with the Department for Education, with Microsoft, with Google, with my social value leads, my internal tech services team who've helped me around, what a residual fund looks like potentially for a school. But this is about options. It's about understanding that if your IT contractor is telling you that this thing is on the way and it's going to cost you this money, go back to them and say, can we look at these other things? Contractually, they've got to do this by themselves and they need to have those conversations. But even if it just enables a school to feel more empowered to do that, that's why I've done this piece of work. And I'm desperately trying to share it across the UK so that everybody has this information. Keeps me up at night worrying that schools are spending money they don't have. But also, October 2025 is the deadline for this. It doesn't necessarily mean that your stuff will completely, not work. Elements of it may not, if it's not compatible with Windows 11. But yes, there are other options. You could think about maybe turning your device into a Chromebook, for example, using Google OS Flex. There's other operating systems out there, as lots of my tech pro friends tell me. Ubuntu, I think Linux is another one.
Linux.
So there are other options, but I think they're just lesser known. So we've got educators, we've got consumers. So might be small to medium enterprises. And I said to you, in Essex, we're on 99%. These are the guys that prop up our economy, and it worries me that their tech might suddenly stop working and they didn't know it's coming. So they're the next group that I'm going to try and tackle around comms. And then the you and me, the parents, the carers. Yeah. So we've got some great organizations like Vodafone's Digital Parenting Pro, who can get this messaging out there. Lots of organizations that can help. Barclays, for example, can put stuff on, and Emma Weston's Digital Champion, she's part of the conversations now. It is about, what are your options? How do I do this thing? And empower people to make the right decision and choice for them. Always we try and make sure that schools, if they can refresh their devices, it's the safest option in terms of cybersecurity, and that's the direct direction coming from the Department for Education. But financially, if that's not possible, then, like I said, there are other options. So thank you for allowing me to kind of have a mini rant about that.
I think what we're talking about here is I mean, the basic problem is that security updates for Windows end in October this year, and
Windows 10,
and the problem is that many people will have devices which are not, including me, by the way, which will not run Windows 11. So that the recommended upgrade path from Microsoft, which is simply to upgrade to Windows 11, won't work for a whole lot of people who cannot necessarily by October afford to replace their Windows PC or whatever or device. So that's as I understand, that's a basic problem. And Microsoft seemed to be completely, and I think possibly for the first time, absolutely intransigent about extending the deadline. Although there are options you can pay for, and there is the risk. You could take the risk of just ignoring it and carrying on using Windows 10 for a while. But do you have a link? You say you've done a piece of work. Is there a resource for this that we can?
I've done a LinkedIn article that we can share. But yeah, you could potentially, I think it's like $1 for the first year, or $2 for the second year, and so on. 3 years upwards. So if you wanted to continue your service with Microsoft, there is the option. But of course, when I'm putting comms together for schools, I need to also sort of realign them back with that conversation around that may pose additional cybersecurity threats. So always look at the DFE's guidance on that. Trying to stay non-biased and only signposting and not give advice is incredibly difficult to get that message. But I hope that the messaging that I have produced, which aligns to what everybody's agreed, helps people.
Does this kind of query come into the Digital Help Finder? Is this a conversation that's happening there? No.
Not at the moment. It would be an outside conversation. So this is information that we're providing to our community volunteering services, our charities, anybody that provides these services. But you may find, one of the worries that I think about is, where we've provided refurb devices, that worries me as to then how long they're able to process.
That's been my background concern for a while now. I mean, an organisation that I have association with, a science festival here in Orkney, we were delighted to get 5 laptops donated to us by a remakery in Edinburgh.
I love the remakery.
But unfortunately, they're Windows 10 and they won't upgrade to Windows 11. So we're all right for this year for our September festival, but
we'll might be able to flex them.
Yeah, we'll have to decide what to do, and so it's a direct question for now for nearly everybody who has a Windows device.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, the kind of the overall thing, and you briefly alluded to it, Jess, when you talked about the 5th arm, one of the organizations you mentioned operate on, and it's the building motivation, skills, and the confidence, building confidence in digital. And like all of us, obviously on the call, have a level of confidence that if something goes wrong, we know we can probably fix it, or if we can't, then we know somebody else who can help us fix it. How do we get that? How do we get other people to have that confidence? Where does yours come from? Um, and how are we working on being able to share that with other people? George, can we start with you? Where did you get your confidence from, and how do you share that with other people?
Well, I was lucky. My early digital engagement confidence came from my mum, who taught word processing and computer skills as a career path when we were living when I was growing up with her. So I got my confidence just from being able to start looking at how computers worked quite a young age. But that confidence is continually eroded by examples like this, where technologically it's an expense to keep up. So I totally recognize why confidence is completely eroded for those that just think, oh, this is beyond them, because the only way to keep up with this is the expense of new technology. And so, yeah, it's really worrying from a not being able to refurbish one's own computer or upgrade. I mean, I always used to build my own PCs, used to take great satisfaction in it. And you could always continually upgrade and develop. But the speed of change now is so huge that there needs to be better consideration at every step of these changes. And it's a big system now. So you've got to have people really well informed at every stage to support the organizations that Jess is talking about.
Yeah,
I think
thanks. Sorry, Sweyn, but Jess is going to have to go, so we're going to have to say goodbye to her. Really sorry, Jess. I'm sure you have lots to say on this confidence bit. I hope you have a good celebration, what you're doing, and thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for seeing us.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks very much.
In touch.
Sorry to cut across you, George. Please carry on.
No, quite all right. I mean, that's my piece around confidence, essentially. But I guess throughout this whole conversation, the confidence that our excluded users have, the ones that we're trying to reach, in many cases, it's rock bottom. And how do you actually start improving that over the time? Devices is a major part of that. And if we're providing them with refurbished devices, which is a massive scheme for digital inclusion, that don't have the ability to function in a year's time, it's a huge issue. And I know Jess has been amazing.
It makes me think that we should be, as well as giving out refurbished devices, we should be making clear at that point and subsequently possibly what their expected lifespan is in this sort of way. Because a device that gets you through your device that gets us through our next festival is not as valuable as a device that we've got reasonable confidence will still be usable in 4 years' time. But also another thing to get through to people, I think, who are low in confidence or low in skills, is that every device does have a time limit. It's not a question of buying, as cars used to be, buying a car, and if you chose to, you could run it into the ground 25 years later. You will have to replace the device at some point. So there's got to be some element of that kind of awareness built into these skills as well. And I think sometimes that's not given the prominence it maybe deserves.
And where would you say your confidence came from, Sweyn?
Me? I still don't have any confidence when it comes to tech. I mean, I expect it to go wrong. I think I've got low expectations. I expect everything to go wrong all the time, and with technology, quite often that's true.
But you can fix it.
I know I can
have a go.
Well, I can have a go. Yes, I don't know. I've always been happy to have a go at things, I think. Anyway, so I've had the good fortune to have a steady access, at least if not ownership, of a steady stream of devices from the late 80s onwards, or the early 80s onwards. So yeah.
Same with me. I mean, I trained as a librarian, and so using technology as a cataloger originally with OCLC in Birmingham, kind of just it became second nature. And because librarians like to find things out and kind of discover things, so it became something that I did on a regular basis. And then you get asked to help everybody else. So even you're expected then to know everything, of course.
I think the first really useful system that hit me as a useful thing rather than a toy was the Amstrad PCW word processor in the what would have been the second half of the 80s.
Mm.
And it literally was marketed as a word processor, but it was also a very basic personal computer as well. And I think that was I think that was its value in demonstrating to people who weren't particularly interested in the technology, but were interested in getting applications to work. I think its value, its position in the kind of revolution of the digital revolution is maybe not given as much prominence as
Mm.
it should have, because it was
Maybe we should
marketed as
devote
a useful item,
we
which
should
was
devote
also
a
a
whole
computer.
show to that.
Yeah, yeah.
And that really brings us to the end of this show.
Yes.
George, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you,
Jess,
George.
we thank you in absentia. We think to get in contact with Jess, I think she's happy to be contacted via LinkedIn. She's very public on there. George, what's the best way to contact you if people want to do that after the show?
LinkedIn's probably the best way as
Okay.
well. I think I'm relatively findable there.
Okay, that's
Yes,
great.
and both
Easiest
of
way.
those links will, along with several links of things we've spoken about, including how to borrow a dog if you can't have a pet, and also Jess's article on helping schools and trusts to understand their Windows 11 update options. Links for all that are in the description of this video.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, George. Great to see you, Sweyn. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.